This is Jeremy Osterberger with BIC Alliance and BIC Magazine, and I'm joined today by Tom Yura, President and CEO of UBE C1 Chemicals America. Tom, thanks for joining us. We've interviewed you several times in the past, but I'm excited to catch back up with you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, and thank you for the opportunity to go ahead and talk with you today, Jeremy. There's a lot of great stuff going on, and I'm excited to jump in and have a great conversation with you today.
You know, Tom, before we jump into all the wonderful things we're going to talk about, projects in South Louisiana and workforce development and the great work that GBRIA is doing, I wanted to get into a little bit to your background for folks that don't know you. Would you talk a little about your background in the chemical industry and your journey to becoming, being in this new role as president and CEO? Talk a little bit about how you got here.
Okay, great. So as a chemical engineer, it started with BASF and had a wonderful career doing a lot of great things. And that's ultimately what brought me to Louisiana, right? In 2009, I came over as the Senior Vice President, General Manager of the Geismar site. It was a great honor to go ahead and be in charge of that site for, almost 10 years. Brought my family over, grew my family right up here, and now I'm the adopted son of Louisiana. From there, right, decided to expand my horizons a bit, jumped over as the Chief Operating Officer for Cornerstone Chemical Company, did that for a number of years down in Jefferson Parish, and then most recently joined UBE, C1 Chemicals America, to run the business, right? And run the business, get this plant built, get it started up. So I've been blessed with tremendous opportunities and surrounded by wonderful people, and really found a great place in the chemical manufacturing space here in Louisiana.
So, Tom, let's talk a little bit about UBE and this project. So UBE announced it's making a $500 million investment in South Louisiana. It's the first U.S. DMC and EMC plant. Let's get into that. So that's dimethyl carbonate and ethyl methylcarbonate. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, no, you did a good job.
All right.
Okay. And so this plant, right? So you first have to start with supply chains. We all know that when COVID came, global interruptions on supply chain made everybody and every company rethink, where are you sourcing all your materials from? How much is domestic and how much is imported? And so when you think about the critical mineral space, when you think about electrification, decarbonization, a lot of movement, right, in that space has been occurring in the U.S., certainly over the last 3 to 4 years. With UBE making DMC in Japan, there was a very strong desire by the company to have locally produced DMC and EMC for the U.S. market. The best way to have that local source is to go ahead and build a plant. UBE has some proprietary technology which utilizes carbon monoxide and methanol, a very friendly way, I would say, to go ahead and make these vital materials as a solvent that goes into EV batteries. So back in February of this past year, was really excited. We had a fantastic groundbreaking. Our president, CEO, now chairman of the board, came over, and we announced we were officially breaking ground on our new manufacturing facility to make these vital products and to be the first in the U.S. to actually produce this. Today, if you're having EV batteries and the solvents that go in it, it's all imported, predominantly from China. And so having a U.S. domestic supply also reflects UBE's commitment to the U.S. market, and for the state of Louisiana, right, a $500 million investment in the state and the jobs is something I think we can all be very proud of.
So, Tom, you mentioned you broke ground. Give everyone some idea of when project may be completed or startup may take place.
Right. No, that's a great point. So we've broken ground. A lot of work has been going on in the background for well over a year now. We're going to be proceeding through equipment installation, starting that in the latter half of this year. And our target is to have this plant up and running by the fourth quarter of next year. which also means we're now starting to hire people. We are starting to fill some key roles, but we've got a lot more jobs to source over the course, I'd say, of the rest of this year and into the beginning of next year, so people can be trained. We can have everything in place so that we can safely commission and then start up the plant.
That's fantastic. Thanks for giving us an update on that project, Tom. Okay, so let's get a little bit more into the South Louisiana region. There's really a lot of excitement around some new projects in Louisiana, especially at the Riverplex Mega Park in Donaldsonville. For those that are unfamiliar with this, the Riverplex is a massive 17,000 acre industrial park. It's really built to attract billion-dollar clean energy and industrial manufacturing projects. Tom, could you tell our audience a little bit about, maybe Hyundai's and CF Industries' efforts to bring low carbon emission manufacturing to the Riverplex and Mega Park area, and why are these developments such a big deal?
Well, I think, when you look at from a country perspective, we've spent a lot of time over the last few years really looking to embrace, especially in Louisiana, the all of the above energy policies. So not only are we continue to embracing the traditional oil and gas and chemical manufacturing, but now the decarbonization, electrification, low carbon materials, the demand that the world is having for these, whether locally in the U.S. or globally, has really spurred, in my opinion, an unprecedented level of investment. And so when you think about Hyundai coming in and making U.S.-based steel for the automobiles and utilizing electricity, right, for the key energy source for the production of the steel, when you think of the low carbon intensity ammonia projects, hydrogen projects, and others that you get there with carbon capture, right, and sequestration to reduce the environmental impact and carbon footprint that you have. I think it shows the power of embracing an all of the above energy policy, because all of these things create tremendous investment. And when you compound that, Jeremy, with things like AI data centers, the amount of electricity, the amount of infrastructure that also needs to be built is tremendous. And when you throw all of that together, it's an absolute boom, right, for manufacturing, for job growth, and for economic development in the state. And those are two great key projects, and it just shows the massive level of investment that is being committed to come into our state.
There's so much power demand. We're going to need lots of hamsters on wheels, Tom. Make this Tom. So absolutely. Well, Tom, and just for our audience's reference, you mentioned Honda. They invest in, I think it's $5.8 billion. It's its first U.S. steel plant, creating over 1,300 jobs, 4,100 indirect jobs. CF Industries' investment is profiled around $4 billion, with a low carbon ammonia facility that will capture over 95% of CO2 emissions. So a little bit of profiles on those projects, as you mentioned. So Tom, I'm going to go over to another project. There's many other companies making some major investments in South Louisiana and in Ascension Parish, like Clean Hydrogen Works and its ACE project, which is breaking ground in Donaldsonville. That's a $7 billion investment. Can you talk more about maybe that Clean Hydrogen Works project? And really, what does all this investment mean for the region and as it relates to clean energy?
Yeah, I think, if you look at this holistically, right, what does it mean for the region? It means that Louisiana is poised to be a hub for clean energy manufacturing. When you look at through LSU fuel, right, and the establishment of the exploration of all of these different energy sources, it means that, you have Silicon Valley, everybody knows where that is in California. It means that with the rapid pace of the investments, the diversity of the investments that we have, there's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be the hub for clean manufacturing projects for the foreseeable future. A lot of these projects people talk about, people hope will come, but what's great is so many of these projects are not only just wish items, these projects are under development. And I think that puts us in a leadership role. And the great thing about being in a leadership role, you attract other investments. Again, that's how Silicon Valley happens. So, if you're generating hydrogen, if you're generating clean ammonia, that can beget the next manufacturing, and you just start building out this ecosystem even larger. So again, and you see it, right? You attract one investment, you get another investment because people want to come where there's business. And again, the economic growth potentials for our state, I believe, are just absolutely unparalleled in our history.
That's right, Tom. In that ACE project, 7.5 billion, producing 2.4 million tons of clean ammonia annually, and I think I read where it's plans to scale up to maybe even up to 7.2 tons for folks that kind of understand the capacity. So Tom, you're a guy who's in the know. Beyond the projects we've discussed, are there any other developments underway, or maybe some conversations about future projects that I don't know, maybe could be announced soon?
Oh, absolutely. And, you start hitting a number of these sweet spots, right? So as the world continues to look for lower carbon energy sources, you've already mentioned a couple of ammonia plants. That's not going to be the end of ammonia, right? And ammonia production, because the U.S. and our region has so much natural gas, right, to be able to turn that into ammonia. Countries all around the world are looking to the U.S. for ammonia production for exporting, right, as part of clean fuel. So I would expect more ammonia announcements to be coming over the course of the next year. And again, you've already talked about it. These are billion-dollar investments, right? And, I think we started in the chem sectors where, okay, you'd have $100 million, and then we moved to $500 million, and eventually you get up to, maybe $1 billion, or, large projects like Formosa, but those are rare. Now, all of a sudden, Jeremy, when you're talking about these projects, people start throwing out the billion, right? Like it's just common. Oh, 7 billion here, 4 billion here, 5 billion here. When you start thinking about the economic impact and the multipliers, these are tremendous. But in addition, of course, to more ammonia plants, there will be other mineral-based, other projects either incorporating and having to do with solar, having to do with wind, these alternative energy sources, which are obviously big pieces here. At some point, right, we're going to have to be bringing up nuclear again, in ways or another, whether it's the small modular reactors or other components. LNGs, right? You got more LNG announcements. And so all of these things start putting up staggering numbers, like $100 billion in investments over a period of times. And now all of a sudden you start throwing in data centers in North Louisiana and others. These are all billion-dollar numbers. It's amazing.
If you want to check out a cool video, I interviewed Dow Seeker if they're putting in that small modular reactor there, and they got a lot of views. So really cool to think that that might show up in other places too.
Oh, absolutely, because all of these things have one thing in common: you need more electricity to go ahead and run all of this, right? And so the whole infrastructure, talking with electricity providers, and talking with companies, right, that are going to be supporting all the electrification efforts, all of those businesses, their growth is exponential at this point, just trying to keep up with demand.
And we're seeing it over here in Texas. So much that's happening in government is about municipalities and states being able to satisfy this incredible, power demand, this wave of power demand that's coming. And hey, our grid over here in Texas is already at its limit, right? So these are challenges that industry has to face. But man, it's great ones to have. It should be an investment that we all want to make.
Absolutely, no, absolutely.
So let's get into carbon sequestration a little bit, Tom. So all these projects we mentioned, Hyundai, CF Industries, ACE. I mean, can you explain how these facilities are going to achieve carbon sequestration, and why is it so crucial for success that these projects, have this layer of the project within it?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, I would call it just when you burn, right? When you burn natural gas, as an example, to make steam or to make electricity or to get hydrogen as an example, to get ammonia, carbon is a byproduct, right? And so carbon as CO2 is a byproduct that comes out. And so, over the last years, right, people have been looking at ways on how to reduce industrial impact from CO2. So, having pieces of equipment, right, that will capture the gas, right, out of the combustion of a plant, out of a stack, how to capture that CO2, and then how to compress it, right? So you can travel down a pipeline and then you inject it into the ground, right, and store it underground. This is a way you can continue to make the products that we were looking for. It's a way you can reduce carbon footprint globally by, instead of having the CO2 going up into the atmosphere, you inject it and you store it underground. And so what's been great for the state of Louisiana has primacy from the EPA to permit, to regulate, to manage this. And now it's up to industry to build out the infrastructure to capture, collect, and transport, and then ultimately store the CO2 underground.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to flip our discussion over to workforce development. Look, so much, it's so important to talk about this. I mean, how is industry working with educational institutions like river parishes, community college to ensure local workforce is prepared? And we're talking about high-tech and high-wage careers that are available for folks that go through these programs.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, but you actually have to take that back a little further. So if you remember, Jeremy, what did you want to be when you were in 7th or 8th grade?
You mean other than a wrestler, pro wrestler?
Yes, other than a pro wrestler.
I've always loved media, always loved current events. I remember just, I don't know, listening to the radio, as a kid. I've kind of always been have the lean to what I do now, actually. It's one of those people that kind of knew what I wanted to do. I don't know, probably middle school, something like that.
Which is awesome, but a lot of people don't know what they want to do, right? Or they think they want to do, or they have their parents say, you have to grow up and you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer, right? You have to go to college, you have to, because that's the only way you can be successful. And that's one of the biggest falsehoods perpetrated around, right? And so as industry, it is really up to us to be able to take young men and young women in our industry and go into the junior highs, go into the high school and talk with young people about careers, right? People will talk about some of these exciting things. You want to be an astronaut, you want to be a ball player, this. Who walks in and say, hey, do you want to be a welder? Right? And we're addressing that gap, right? And if you think about a population, half men and half women in our state, women have also been underrepresented for a long period of time because nobody just approached them. And so as industry, we are working hand in hand with the school districts now. We're getting industry, whether it's a contractor, whether it's an owner company, like a UBE, like others that you've mentioned, to go into junior highs and to say, hey, guess what? All right. What do you want to do? Consider industry, right? Consider working in a field where you can be an electrician, you can be a welder, you could be an engineer, you could be a draftsperson, you could be any of these kind of things. Well, they never heard anybody talking about that. Then on top of that, Jeremy, you layer on the next level. The next level is internships. So now, right, you bring in kids from high school and walk through production facilities, walk through and be part of a contractor. So they get to actually see what this job looks like. And the first thing you hear is, well, heck, I could do that. Whether you're a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. I could do that. And now they start to see it. And then on top of that, you layer on teacher externships. So as industry, we're sponsoring high school teachers during the summer to spend 2 or 3 days with us. They can walk through our facilities. They can go to ABC and to see what the training is like, to get a level 1 electrician certificate or understand what it's like to be a welder. Right? And then the next thing is you have career fairs. You have Journey to Your Future, where you're partnering with school districts, high school districts, to go ahead and come in and bring hundreds and hundreds of kids to interact with the companies that are making all of these plants and companies that are producing these materials, so that people go, well, wow, that's a really cool job. And what's important is they're looking at people that look just like them, young people, different men, women, different ethnicities. And then quickly they go, well, if you can do it, why can't I do that? Right. So it really takes this approach, because we found just by going to the community colleges, and Louisiana has the LCTCS is a fabulous system, and they want people, but they can't get people into seats to go ahead and be a process tech, to go ahead and get the accredited degrees, right, in craft development, if people don't want to go into those programs. So we have found we have to stimulate to get them in. Of course, once we get in there, we as industry have to be part of the programs. We have to review the programs. We have to support the programs. We have to provide feedback, and then ultimately we hire. But I mean, it's doesn't take an advanced mathematician to tell you, when you have $100 billion worth of projects in the pipeline, addition to what we have today, we ain't anywhere close to having the workforce needed. And so that's why also then partnering with the Louisiana Workforce Commission, looking for creative ways to help adults get back into the industry, or to come into the industry, and to partner with the changes that the Louisiana Workforce Commission is making to help identify people, help solve issues they may have, transportation, healthcare, childcare. These are impediments, right, that keep a portion of the workforce out. So, I mean, we have to take a shotgun approach, because if we're going to close a gap of 10,000, 15,000 skilled workers, we got to reach people. We got to increase the pipeline of young people coming in to consider our industry. We've got to find people who are either underemployed or doing something different, and we have to first show them we're here. Then we have to help guide them. How do you get the education that you need? And then 3, we've got to go ahead and help them solve any kind of other barriers, right, that are keeping them from getting into these high-paid jobs. And then we just got to unleash them right into our industry.
And added to that too, Tom, the upskilling, right? That incumbent training of folks that you mentioned, the digitalization and AI and automation, upskilling those folks that have been in industry a while too is a whole nother.
That's a whole other discussion, Jeremy, when you start thinking about what do you need to be successful today, right? But that's also been part of the barrier. There's still a lot of people think that to be in industry, you have to be a man, you have to be dirty, and you have to wear a hard hat, right? And if you say, well, actually not, to be in industry today, I need you in an air-conditioned trailer, and I need you to operate a drone all day. I mean, this is like, how cool is that? I mean, this is like being on a video game all day that you're getting paid for in an air-conditioned trailer that requires a high level of proficiency, because you're doing drone inspections, you're doing drone repairs, you're doing drone monitoring for safety. So it's an incredibly advanced technical world nowadays compared to the way it used to be.
And I do think, Tom, South Louisiana, really the Gulf Coast, but South Louisiana especially, as someone who grew up there, man, I think the industry to me is so tied into the fabric of the culture and the family and the community that Louisiana is unique and poised to succeed in this Herculean effort of trying to get this workforce development underway. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if that comes, I think when you look at Louisianans, resiliency is something that always comes to mind. Incredibly dedicated, hardworking. You're never going to give up to do it. But you also have people who are skilled, who are entrepreneurs, right? When you see a lot of the contract companies that are in existence today, you pick one like Performance. You've got somebody that came up, right, and created all of this, and that's from Louisiana, which is absolutely incredible. So I'd say Louisiana, we have the right stuff. We just need more of us, right, out there to go ahead and build and run and operate all the stuff that we have.
Fantastic. So I want to get into sort of job creation or extend our conversation, Tom, into that. So, how will projects like the ones we mentioned, especially in like that Riverplex mega park area, contribute to job creation? I mean, what kinds of opportunities and what's kind of the volume of opportunities we're really talking about here?
Yeah, a wonderful question, right? So when you think about the economics, right, you're going to hear a number of things. You'll have direct jobs. So after the plant is built, after the plant's done, what's the minimum staffing you need to keep that plant running on a day-to-day basis? Right. And when you look at the economic multipliers that have been well documented by Lauren Scott and others, and it's 5, 6, 7, pick a number, right? But when you hear, right, we're gonna have 300 direct jobs, right, in a megaplex in that area, well, multiply it by 5 and you got 1,500. And you go, well, where are all those jobs coming from? Well, if you think about the ecosystem in a plant, right? You've got the people that run the plant. Well, now what you do is you have the people that maintenance the plant, right? Those are people that are going to be coming in during big turnarounds. So that's a large group of people. Then you get into things, well, who's going to provide the parts and the pieces? Everything from nuts, bolts, gaskets. Who's going to do any of the painting, the insulation work? The scaffolding, all those other parts there. Who's going to come in and provide lunches? Who's going to provide the hotels? I mean, in Ascension Parish, when you look at Highway 30, if you go back, 15 years, I can tell you there weren't any hotels right next to the land that also didn't have a Cabela's. So really quickly you can start seeing, and as you start bringing those people into the areas, guess what? Like in Ascension Parish, you're building your next high school, which means you need your next teachers, which means means your next staff, et cetera. So as this propels economic growth forward, you have all of these ancillary jobs that absolutely come in to support it. No different than if you shutter facilities and you're not rebuilding them, you just see jobs go away, right? Because then, if there's no workers, there's no restaurants because there's no one going to it. You don't need the hotels. You don't need the laundromat. No one's going to the grocery store anymore. And all those things fall down. It's just quite the opposite when you have these kind of people moving in and growing. You need more housing, whether it's apartments or regular houses, and that brings in more people and more crafts to build out the infrastructure to support all that.
No, thanks, Tom, for covering that. So, Tom, one association that's dead set on growing the industry in South Louisiana is GBRIA, the Greater Baton Rouge Industry Alliance. And Tom, you are board chair of GBRIA. Could you tell us a little bit about the organization for folks that don't know? And I wanted to dig into how can contractors and people that want to help our industry get involved?
No, thanks. So GBRIA has been around over 50 years. And it started, right, as an industrial alliance of owner companies, right? An owner company would be like a UBE that said, we really want to ensure that there is a safe and available craft workforce in Louisiana to build, maintenance, and if we need to, right, operate chemical manufacturing and industrial facilities, because people just don't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a craft worker. So we've dedicated our existence in partnerships with the industrial contractors to help create that contract workforce. So, well, how do you create that contract workforce? Well, you have to create training organizations and training camps like Associated Builders and Contractors. You have to buy the equipment. You have to pay for teachers. And so this relationship between the owner side and the contractor side is, hey, let's pay as owners to help get people trained to go to the contractors that we can hire and come back, right? The second part, obviously, is safety. This is a place where companies will meet and to say, hey, what are you worried about? Right? Where's the next accident going to occur in your plant? And I'll give you a great example. Many years ago, we said, well, hydroblasting is a higher risk operation, right? You're not It's not the cleaner that you're using outside of your house, right? You're talking about 20,000 pounds of pressure. And we're like, how could we help as owners make that safer? Well, where do you go for training? How can you partner with hydroblasting organizations? So we went to ABC, we went to NCCER, and help create a training class to say, hey, as owners, we want you as a hydroblaster to come through and to get that training. We also said, is there a better way to do it? The hydroblasting contractor goes, absolutely. You can embrace robotics and automation. So instead of a contractor trying to meet with one person and then another person, we said, you need to talk at one of our GBRIA meetings and talk to all the plant managers at one time. So you say, hey, here's how we utilize robotics. Here's how we put a person in an air-conditioned trailer as opposed to being outside, right, and doing it. And this is a much safer way to do work. And as owners, we go, well, then that's something as local industry we should embrace, and as local industry we should do. And there are so many examples of that, but this is where we know as industry, we're only as good as our performance every day. So having the craft workforce that's available to build and maintain our plants, to have our contractors be safe in our production units, for us to be safe in our production units, there's no higher imperative. And so that's something that will work. And we use GBRIA as a great facilitator to flush these ideas out. And then more importantly, for us to go and implement.
Tom, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being so great to BIC. And we're so grateful for you. Thank you for your insights on UBE, on the amazing industrial developments that are happening in South Louisiana, and your involvement with GBRIA.
All right. So thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for everything. And thanks for everything you do. And enjoyed talking with you today.
Yeah, always. Hey, for more information for everyone watching, you can visit UBE.com to learn more about the C1 chemicals and the project happening in South Louisiana. You can also visit GBRIA.org to learn more about GBRIA. As always, we thank you so much for watching. For more videos, news, podcasts, and intelligence, visit BICmagazine.com. And remember, it's what we do together that counts.